All right, let's jump right in. We've got some interesting stuff to unpack today.
Yeah, this AS 4811 thing.
Looks like it's causing a stir, especially in Australia.
Especially with this press release we got from Cleared Life Vetting Agency. They're
pretty excited, huh?
Yeah, first in Australia to be compliant with AS 4811 2022.
They're really shouting it from the rooftops, calling it a milestone even.
A milestone! The future of personnel security, you know.
All that good stuff.
All that jazz. And they keep mentioning these suitability interviews and risk assessments.
So that's got to be a big piece of this AS 4811.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about best practices for making sure the right people are in the right roles.
From a security perspective, right?
Exactly. Can't be too careful these days, what with all the insider threats and...
Oh, yeah, all that data leaks and foreign interference and whatnot.
All that, exactly. So as 4811, it's really trying to address all of that head on.
So it's not just your run-of-the-mill background check anymore.
Nope. Not even close. Background checks, they're fine, but they only tell you so much, right?
Like what someone's done in the past.
Right, the past, but as 4811, it's digging deeper.
Getting into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly, like someone's judgment, their motivations, any vulnerabilities.
And Cleared Life, they're not messing around. They've gone and implemented all 73 of those should clauses.
73, all of them.
Way above and beyond, huh?
Definitely, and that's what's so interesting. It's more than just ticking boxes. They're showing a real commitment.
The personnel security, basically setting a new standard.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. Why are these one-on-one interviews and risk assessments so important?
Well, think about it. Imagine you're a company working on some top secret project.
Defense contract or something.
Something like that. Critical infrastructure.
You can't afford any slip-ups.
No, you need to be absolutely certain that everyone on your team is trustworthy, reliable.
Can handle confidential info, no loose cannons.
Exactly. No weak links. And that's where AS 4811 comes in.
Okay, so how do these interviews and assessments actually help with that?
So these interviews, they're conducted by trained professionals who are really skilled at assessing a candidate's character, their motivations.
Seeing if they're susceptible to pressure, maybe?
Exactly. Things you wouldn't pick up on a standard background check.
Makes sense. Cleared Life mentions this is a big deal for organizations involved in the DISP. What exactly is that?
Oh, good point. DISP. That's the Defense Industry Security Program.
Okay, defense industry, that makes sense.
Yeah, sets the security rules for companies working with sensitive defense information.
Aerospace, tech, manufacturing, all that.
All that. Anything touching national security, really.
So AS 4811 is kind of raising the bar for those companies.
Big time. And Cleared Life is putting themselves out there as the experts to help companies navigate this new landscape.
Okay, makes sense. They're talking about compliance and mitigating those insider threats.
All that, basically ensuring that the workforce has integrity, you know.
But isn't this going to make hiring more difficult, more expensive?
That's a fair point. Something we'll probably see debated a lot.
As more companies start dealing with AS 4811.
Exactly. But Cleared Life's argument is that the cost of not implementing these standards, well, that could be much higher.
Damage from a security breach or something like that?
Leak of confidential info, sabotage, you name it.
Okay, I'm starting to see the big picture. It's not just about ticking boxes. It's about protecting your assets, your reputation.
Potentially even national security. Exactly.
So how did Cleared Life get to this point, being the first to be compliant?
Well, they had to go through a pretty rigorous independent audit focused on all the key areas.
The interviews, risk assessments, data security, all that.
All of it. And AS 4811, it's big on continuous improvement, so they had to show they're constantly refining their processes.
So they didn't cut any corners.
Not at all. And that approach, it seems to be a core part of their identity.
They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be a big differentiator for them.
As more organizations realize how important AS 4811 really is.
Exactly.
And that's where this quote from Dr. William A. Stoltz comes in, right?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Stoltz, he's been beating the drum about security vetting for years.
Especially in the private sector.
Right. And Cleared Life is basically saying, we heard you, and we're the solution.
Bold move.
It is, but they seem pretty confident.
Yeah, they're definitely putting themselves out there as the go-to experts for personnel security.
No doubt about it. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the industry responds.
That is a great question, and one we'll be exploring in just a bit. But first, I want to dig a little deeper into those should clauses, the ones that Cleared Life went above and beyond for.
Okay, let's do it.
What are some of the specific things they're doing that really exceed those basic requirements?
Well, they actually provide some good examples. In their blog post, they've got these visual aids.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they highlight sections of AS4 8/1/2022 and connect them directly to the services they offer. Really shows a deep understanding of how AS 4811 plays out in the real world.
It's one thing to say you're compliant, but it's another to show people how you're actually putting those standards into practice.
Exactly. They're walking the walk, and I think that's going to be a major advantage for them.
As more organizations start to see the value in AS 4811.
For sure.
So you mentioned earlier that these should clauses go above and beyond. What are we talking about here?
Give me some examples.
Yeah. What are some things that Cleared Life is doing that are really exceeding expectations?
Okay, so one example they highlight is their approach to ongoing monitoring.
Ongoing monitoring.
Yeah, so AS 4811, it encourages organizations to keep tabs on personnel even after they've been hired.
Especially if they're in high-risk roles.
Exactly. So Cleared Life, they've developed this system for continuous monitoring.
What would that involve?
Regular check-ins, updates on any changes in circumstances, and get this, social media analysis.
Social media analysis. Wow, that sounds intense.
It is, but it reflects the world we live in, right?
I guess so. What we do online can say a lot about us.
Exactly. Our character, our judgment, potential vulnerabilities even.
Makes you think twice about that late-night tweet.
Right. So Cleared Life argues that by incorporating social media analysis, they get a more complete picture of an individual.
Can spot red flags that might have been missed.
Exactly.
I can see how that could be valuable, but it also makes you wonder about privacy.
Of course, how much access is too much?
Right. Where do you draw the line?
That's a key point, and it's something that AS 4811 addresses directly.
It does.
Yeah, the standard emphasizes transparency and consent throughout the whole vetting process.
So individuals know what information is being collected and how it's being used.
Exactly, and what their rights are. It's not just a free-for-all.
Companies can't just snoop around in people's lives without any limits.
No, absolutely not, as 4811 recognizes the need to balance security with individual rights.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Cleared Life also makes it clear that all their processes are done with the utmost respect for privacy, and they're compliant with all the relevant legislation.
So they're taking this responsibility seriously.
Very seriously, and I think that's another reason why they've been so successful.
In achieving conformance, you mean?
Exactly. It's not just about the technical aspects, it's about the ethical considerations, too.
Makes sense. Let's go back to that independent audit for a second. They mentioned it covered data security.
Right.
Seems pretty critical these days, what with all the data breaches we hear about.
You're telling me data breaches can be devastating, especially when you're dealing with the kind of sensitive information involved in personnel security.
Absolutely. So it's good that AS 4811 recognizes that.
And that Cleared Life made data security a priority during their audit.
Did they mention any specifics about their data security practices?
They did. They use encryption for all sensitive data.
Both in transit and at rest, right?
That's right. And they've got strict access controls. Only authorized personnel can see or change the information.
And regular security audits, I bet.
You bet, to find and fix any vulnerabilities.
Sounds like they've really thought this through.
They have. They're not just reacting to the standard, they're proactively anticipating the challenges.
And putting safeguards in place.
Exactly. It's impressive.
Speaking of evolving, do you think other companies are going to follow Cleared Life's lead and embrace AS 4811?
That's the million-dollar question.
Or is this just a niche thing for now?
It's early days, but Cleared Life is definitely making waves.
Raising awareness of AS 4811.
Showing what's possible, and they're pretty vocal about encouraging other organizations to assess their current practices.
See if they measure up.
Exactly. They even have a call to action in their blog post asking readers to check if their current background screening providers meet the Australian standards for workforce screening.
Bold move.
It is, but it also shows the opportunity they see.
They're positioning themselves as the experts.
The go-to people in this field, and I think they have a good shot at succeeding.
I agree. They're not shying away from the challenge. They're embracing it.
They seem genuinely passionate about raising the bar for personnel security.
Across the board.
Across the board, yeah.
Like they're on a mission to make Australia the most secure country in the world.
Well, maybe not the whole country, but they are making a strong case for why AS 4811 is essential for any organization that values trust, security, integrity.
And as we said earlier, that message goes way beyond just the defense industry.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think about how this might impact other industries, healthcare, finance, even education.
Anywhere where people are dealing with sensitive information or working with vulnerable populations.
It's a great point, and that's exactly the kind of conversation Cleared Life is trying to start.
They want organizations to think about personnel security in a whole new way.
So if an organization is listening to this and thinking, okay, this AS4811 thing sounds important, but where do we even begin? What would you say?
I'd say don't panic, but don't ignore it either.
Good advice.
As 4811 can seem a bit daunting, especially if you're not familiar with personnel security, but there are resources out there to help.
Cleared Life seems pretty eager to be one of those resources.
They do, and that's another smart move on their part. They're offering their expertise to help organizations navigate this new landscape, whether it's providing guidance, conducting assessments, or even handling the whole vetting process themselves.
Like they're saying, we climbed the mountain, now we're here to help you get to the top too.
Great analogy. They've done the hard work of achieving conformance, and now they're sharing their knowledge and experience.
To help others follow suit.
Exactly.
And it sounds like they're not just targeting the big players either.
Nope. They're saying they can help organizations of all sizes.
They understand that personnel security is not just a concern for big corporations or government agencies.
Right. Small and medium-sized businesses, they're vulnerable too.
Insider threats, data breaches, all that.
All of it. So whether you're a multinational conglomerate or a local startup, AS 4811 is something you need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. It's not just about compliance. It's about protecting your assets, your reputation, your future.
Well said.
Well, it seems like we've covered a lot of ground here, from the ins and outs of AS 4811 to Cleared Life's pioneering role in implementing it.
We've talked about the why behind the standard, the how of achieving conformance, and what's next for organizations.
But there's still one big question looming. What does this all mean for the average person out there?
The folks who aren't security experts, but whose lives and careers might be impacted by this shift towards stricter personnel security?
That's a perfect segue into our next discussion.
It is. We've talked a lot about companies and organizations, but what about the individuals?
How might this heightened focus on personnel security impact someone's career path or even their personal life?
That's a big question, and it brings up some really interesting points. Imagine if more companies are adopting these stricter vetting processes based on AS 4811, it's going to change how people approach job applications, background checks, even their online presence.
So it's not just companies that need to adapt.
Right, it's individuals too.
They need to be more aware of their own security footprint.
Exactly, and that brings up a whole new set of considerations.
Like what?
Well, how do you present yourself online in a way that's both authentic and professional, but also mindful of potential security concerns?
That's tricky.
It is. And how do you explain any gaps or inconsistencies in your work history without raising red flags? These are things people might not have thought much about in the past.
But they're becoming increasingly important.
Exactly.
It's almost like we're entering a new era of personal responsibility when it comes to our professional lives.
I think that's a great way to put it. We're moving into a world where our digital footprints and our personal histories are going to be scrutinized more closely than ever before.
And that affects everyone, from the entry-level job seeker to the CEO.
Absolutely.
Makes you wonder if this will lead to a security skills gap.
Where people who aren't tech savvy or don't have a perfect online presence are at a disadvantage.
Exactly.
That's a valid concern and something that policymakers and industry leaders need to be thinking about.
How to make sure these heightened security standards don't create barriers for certain groups.
Exactly. How do we educate people about online privacy and security and give them the tools they need to manage their digital reputations?
It's a complex issue, but it's also an opportunity for individuals to be more proactive.
Absolutely. To take control of their own narrative.
The more aware you are of these trends, the better prepared you'll be.
Exactly. And that might involve being more careful about your social media activity, reviewing your privacy settings, even taking steps to improve your online security.
Good advice.
So to sum it all up, AS 4811, Cleared Life, this whole conversation about personnel security, it's not just about companies and organizations.
It's about all of us.
And how we adapt to this changing landscape.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a reminder that security is not just a technical issue.
It's a human issue.
And the more we understand that, the better equipped we'll be to create a safer, more secure future for everyone.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today as 4811 AS 481-1-2022. It's more than just a standard, it's a sign of the times.
Definitely. And Cleared Life's decision to embrace and champion this standard, it shows where things are headed.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this. How do you think this heightened focus on personnel security will impact your industry, your career, your life in the years to come?
It's a question worth pondering.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then. Yeah, they're really good visuals, too.
Oh.
Yeah, they highlight sections of AS4 81-12022.
Okay.
And then connect them right to the services they offer.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly, showing how it works in practice.
Not just theoretical, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big selling point for them.
As more companies start looking into this.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned these should clauses, the ones that Cleared Life went above and beyond for.
Right.
What are some specific examples?
Things they're doing that really stand out.
Yeah, what are some things that Cleared Life is doing that most companies aren't?
Okay, well, one thing is their approach to ongoing monitoring.
Ongoing monitoring.
Yeah, so AS 4811, it encourages organizations to keep an eye on personnel even after they've been hired.
Makes sense, especially in sensitive roles.
Exactly. So Cleared Life, they've developed a system for continuous monitoring.
What does that look like in practice?
Regular check-ins, updates on any changes in their circumstances.
Okay.
And, get this, social media analysis.
Social media analysis, really?
Yeah.
That's getting pretty deep.
It is, but it's the world we live in now, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Our online lives are pretty public these days.
Exactly. And it can reveal a lot about someone.
Their character, their judgment.
Even potential vulnerabilities.
Makes you think twice about what you post, huh?
Right.
So Cleared Life is saying this helps them get a more complete picture of a candidate.
Exactly. And catch any red flags they might have missed initially.
I can see the value in that, but it does raise some privacy concerns.
Oh, for sure. How much is too much?
Right, where's the line?
That's a crucial point, and it's something AS 4811 addresses directly.
It does.
Yeah, it emphasizes transparency and consent throughout the vetting process.
So candidates know what information is being collected.
How it's being used, what their rights are.
It's not just a free-for-all.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
AS 4811 is very clear about that, balancing security with individual rights.
That's good to hear.
Cleared Life also emphasizes that all their processes are done with respect for privacy.
And in line with the law, of course.
Of course.
It sounds like they're taking this seriously.
Very seriously, and I think that's another reason for their success.
In achieving conformance.
Exactly. It's not just about ticking the boxes. It's about doing things the right way.
Let's circle back to that independent audit for a second.
Okay.
They mentioned data security, which seems pretty critical these days.
Absolutely. Data breaches can be a nightmare.
Especially with the kind of sensitive information we're talking about.
No kidding. So it's good that AS 4811 addresses that.
And that Cleared Life made it a priority during their audit.
Did they give any specifics about how they handle data security?
Yeah, do they say anything about their practices?
They did. They use encryption for all sensitive data.
In transit and at rest, I'm guessing?
You got it. And they've got strict access controls in place.
So not just anyone can see the data.
Exactly. Only authorized personnel.
And regular security audits too, probably.
Yep. To identify and fix any vulnerabilities.
Sounds like they've really got all their bases covered.
They do. They're not just reacting, they're thinking ahead.
Anticipating challenges, putting safeguards in place.
That's right. It's impressive.
So do you think other companies will follow Cleared Life's lead with this AS 4811 thing?
Tough to say.
Is it going to catch on?
It's still early, but Cleared Life is definitely making a statement.
Raising the bar.
Exactly. They're really encouraging other organizations to take a look at their own practices.
See if they measure up.
Yeah, they have a call to action in their blog post, asking readers to check if their current background screen providers meet the Australian standards for workforce screening.
Pretty bold.
It is, but it shows how confident they are.
Positioning themselves as the leaders in this space.
The go-to experts, yeah, and I think they have a good chance of succeeding.
They're not afraid to take on the challenge.
And they seem to really care about raising the bar for personnel security.
Not just for themselves, but for everyone.
Right, across all industries.
It's almost like they're on a mission.
A mission to make Australia the most secure country in the world.
Well, maybe not the whole country, but they're making a strong case for why AS 4811 is so important.
Especially for organizations that value trust and security.
And as we said before, that message goes way beyond just the defense industry.
It does. It really does.
Makes you think about the impact this could have on other industries. Healthcare, finance, even education.
Anywhere where sensitive information is involved.
Or working with vulnerable people.
Exactly. And that's the conversation Cleared Life is trying to start.
Getting people thinking about personnel security in a new way.
Yeah.
So let's say an organization is listening to this And they're thinking, okay, this as 4811 thing sounds important, but where do we even start? What advice would you give them?
I'd say don't panic, but don't ignore it either.
Solid advice.
As 4811 can seem intimidating at first, especially if you're not familiar with personal security.
It's a whole new world.
Right. But there are resources out there to help.
Clear Life seems pretty happy to be one of those resources.
They do, and that's another smart move on their part. They're offering their expertise to help organizations figure this out.
Whether it's just guidance or actually doing the assessments.
Even handling the whole vetting process themselves.
It's like they're saying, we figured it out, now let us help you.
Exactly. They've done the hard work of achieving conformance. Now they're sharing what they learned.
And it sounds like they're willing to work with companies of all sizes.
Oh yeah, not just the big players.
They understand that personnel security is important for everyone.
Big companies, small businesses, everyone's vulnerable.
So whether you're a multinational or a local startup, this 4811 is something to pay attention to.
Absolutely. It's not just about checking boxes. It's about protecting yourself.
Your assets, your reputation, your future.
Well said.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from the details of AS 4811 to Cleared Life's role in all of this.
Yeah, we talked about why the standard exists, how to comply with it, and what it means for organizations going forward.
But there's one big question we haven't really tackled yet. What does this mean for the average person?
The people whose lives and careers could be affected by this, even if they're not security experts.
That's a great point and a perfect segue into our next discussion. It's a whole new ballgame, how's it?
It is, yeah. It really makes you think about how this could impact someone's job prospects, their career trajectory.
Even their personal life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if more and more companies are using these strict vetting processes, based on AS 4811,
It's going to change things.
it has to. People will have to think differently about job applications, background checks, even just their online presence.
So it's not just companies adapting, it's individuals too.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
They need to be more aware of their own, what did you call it?
Their security footprint.
Right, their security footprint.
And that raises all sorts of new questions.
Like what?
Well, for one, how do you present yourself online in a way that's authentic, professional, but also, doesn't raise any security red flags?
It's a balancing act.
It is. And then there's the question of how you explain any gaps in your work history or inconsistencies without making people suspicious.
That's always tricky.
Right. These are things people might not have given much thought to before.
But now they're more important than ever.
Exactly.
It's like we're moving into this new era of personal responsibility.
When it comes to our professional lives, yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Our digital footprints, our past, it's all under scrutiny.
More than ever before, and that's true for everyone, from the new grad just starting out to the CEO.
Do you think this could lead to a kind of security skills gap?
Where people who aren't tech savvy or who have, maybe some not so great stuff online, they're at a disadvantage.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a real concern, and it's something that needs to be addressed by policymakers, industry leaders, everyone.
How do we make sure these higher security standards don't end up excluding certain people?
Right, and how do we educate people about online privacy, online security, give them the tools they need to manage their digital reputations?
It's a big issue, but it's also an opportunity, isn't it?
It is, yeah, for individuals to be more proactive, take control of their own narrative.
The more you know, the better prepared you are.
Absolutely. And that might mean being more careful about what you share online, checking your privacy settings, even taking steps to improve your online security.
Good advice.
So I guess the takeaway here is that AS 4811, Cleared Life, this whole conversation about personnel security,
It's not just about companies
it's about all of us.
and how we adapt to this changing world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a good reminder that security isn't just about technology, it's about people.
And the more we understand that, the better off we'll all be.
Well, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about today. As 4811 AS 4811-2022, it's more than just a set of rules. It's a sign of the times.
Definitely. And Cleared Life, they're leading the charge.
So, to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. How do you think this focus on personnel security will impact your industry, your career, your life in the years to come?
Something to think about.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.